Hello and welcome. Today we'll be discussing a data-driven strategic plan to improve Year 12 attainment levels for Indigenous students at Halls Creek District High School. For context and to reduce confusion, the Aboriginal population of the school is 97%, and therefore I will avoid using terms such as Indigenous students in the presentation, as it should be assumed I'm referring to the majority of students. A brief look at today's key addressment will show that our focus is on the Year 12 attainment for our students. We're going to be looking at a data-driven strategical framework that will help us achieve better numbers in this area. This will focus on some important areas such as collecting new data, the use and management of that data, and assessing the available theory on ways that we can achieve our goal. A thought you should keep in mind throughout is the consequences that educational disengagement has on marginalised communities, not only in their schooling outcomes, but in their career aspirations as well. So let's first look at data-driven decision-making, or DDDM. In relevant context and the simplest of terms, DDDM is used for continuous academic improvement and to measure accountability of our actions. Essentially, what we are doing is collecting both quantitative and qualitative data. Quantitative being entities and variables that can be measured, and qualitative being information about individual experiences or perception. It assumes that data will have an impact on classroom practices and lead to improved student performance. This is achieved by establishing a targeted and responsive plan based off the data that we collect. This method of decision making is being used as a tool through many schools to improve Year 12 attainment, decrease early dropouts, and increase the chances of higher education. This process will help us identify struggling students and more effectively distribute our resources. Action research is essentially discovering problems and solutions that we don't already know and then explaining how we discovered them. When discussing data surrounding our attainment levels, we are committing to a process of improvement and the evaluation of who and what is causing that improvement. Action research provides a platform for us to create a theory-backed framework based on the values that we hold close to our school, being of course the support and celebration of achievement and success. When we do look at the data, we need to ensure we take note of any emerging patterns and give descriptive meaning towards the collected data. The primary focus of our framework is to create a concrete intervention to set up the senior secondary academic success for our students. Specifically, we are wanting to achieve adequate yearly progress towards graduation percentiles at our school. With a combination of both current data and the collection of new data, we will be able to produce a clearer picture and determine significant action that will improve future Year 12 attainment. The theoretical data use guide that I will be discussing is the IES practice guide developed by Hamilton et al. It is a cycle of instructional improvement that has 3 phases. Being cyclical in nature, this data use guide does not have a specific start or end point, making it a perfect model for continuous improvement. It is designed for school-based educators to examine performance and evaluate instructional effectiveness. It constructs a range of data sets from multiple sources to hypothesize instructional improvement and then tests data-driven theory to enhance student learning. Interestingly, in the designing of this model, tackling dropout prevention was a key component and consideration by the Institute of Education and Sciences. Let's look at the available data. The table pictured shows the most up-to-date data available on the highest level of schooling achievement, contrasting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students with the Australian national achievement levels. These sets have been provided by the Australian Bureau of Statistics. This data set shows that Indigenous students are far below the national average in Year 12 attainment and are almost just as likely to drop out in Year 10 as they are to complete in Year 12. It can also be seen that the percentage of Indigenous students whose highest achievement levels are lower than grade 12 are all significantly higher than the national averages. It should be noted that the national averages do include the ATSI students in their numbers. However, with a national student population of 4.4%, I consider this to have little display for error. The second sets of data I would like to look at come from the Closing the Gap Prime Minister report from 2020. As we can see from the table on the left, Year 12 attainment for Indigenous students has increased over the last decade by roughly 21 percentage points. The gap between Indigenous students and non-Indigenous students is steadily closing, and nationally, in both statistics, we are sitting at our highest Year 12 achievement percentages in history. However, if we look at the table on the right, we should be able to notice that remoteness plays quite a large role in Year 12 attainment. Major cities have seen a sharp increase, while very remote schools such as Halls Creek have actually seen a decline over the last 3 years. So, what could be the problem? The graph above shows student dissatisfaction levels with assessment types from the Aboriginal Student Survey held in 2019. As you can see, summative assessment types such as standardized tests and in-class exams have an obtuse level of unhappiness. From the same survey, qualitative data was collected which outlined some key issues from Aboriginal students. A lot of students thought that Stage 1 subjects should reflect practical differences compared to their Stage 2 and 3 counterparts. There was an overall desire to graduate and understanding that graduation leads to future success. Most students indicated levels of exterior restrictions when needing to complete homework. However, these restrictions aren't discussed in the survey. There was mass concern from students towards the attitudes of teachers and unfair treatment towards them. And with the aggregated results from over 500 students, there was unanimous support to be more inclusive of Aboriginal culture in educational learnings. Triangulation is the bringing together of multiple data sources that lead to the same outcome to increase the legitimacy of a data-based inquisition. When comparing the data sets we have already looked at with our graduation numbers over the past 6 years, we can see from a data perspective there is clear triangulation. Over the last 3 years, our graduation numbers have dropped, which is accurate to the very remote statistics from the Closing the Gap report, and similar comparisons can be drawn from the ABS statistics. Enrollment numbers are not a contributing factor, as these have increased over the last 5 years at HCDHS. What extra data do we need to collect to effectively demonstrate our commitment to the framework? We can look at quantitative measures such as attendance data and academic achievement through years 7 to 11. This might help us determine any correlations between attendance and achievement, as well as determine how early intervention is needed throughout secondary schooling. We can also collect qualitative data such as the goals and future aspirations of the students and learning strategies being implemented by the teachers. The goal here is to give more voice to the Indigenous students and surrounding communities. Specifically, we are wanting to collect formative assessment data from the teachers in years 7 to 11 to help us discover early disengagement and standardized test results for academic achievement in lower secondary years. We can employ a Likert scale survey to measure our students' attitudes towards school, their career aspirations, and their experiences with our teachers. We can also consider having guided interviews and conversations with the surrounding Indigenous communities to progress our implementation of culturally engaging material. We also need to ensure we are collecting our data in a safe and ethical manner. When conducting interviews or surveys with students and the broader community, we should be sure to employ guided conversational techniques, such as relationship establishment, unique questions, and to take careful consideration in culturally appropriate handlings. All staff should be involved in the process of collecting and analysing data to limit error and increase effective strategical use. Furthermore, ethical and political responsibilities should be closely monitored, and specific guidelines to the Halls Creek district community is imperative. Finally, historical data, such as data from previous students, should not be ignored to help us more accurately determine the likelihood of Year 12 attainment success in the future. To sum up our strategical plan, I've created a 6-step guide on improving Year 12 achievement levels. Step 1 is to collect new and unknown data that we don't already have available. Step 2 is to analyze and interpret both our new data and the initial data to create a clearer picture. We will then develop a data-driven teaching-based hypothesis to improve Year 12 attainment and modify our in-class teaching methods to test this hypothesis. We will then share and communicate our findings with our colleagues and collect data based on the application of our strategy. As mentioned earlier, this plan is a cyclical model and is based off the need for continuous and rigorous improvement. With this framework, I'm confident that we can achieve higher Year 12 attainment levels over the next 5 years. A PDF version of the framework can be found in the appendices, and a recording of this presentation can be found on YouTube. Thank you for your time.